Oh man, welcome back to the channel, everybody. And today,
Sega.
we're going to be playing a game that I've just recently thought about going back to just to kind of experience again, because later this year, in about a month from when I'm recording this, is the sequel to this game, which is, I think it's been 10 to 11 years since anything happened with this particular game. This is Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine. This is known as one of those cult classics, I guess you can say, in the Warhammer universe. Warhammer being like a gigantic, universe filled with so much lore and backstory. But this is just known as one of the more fan favorite ones because it just gives you like that whole sense of being that Space Marine in the middle of combat and just killing without really being what Warhammer is known for, which is usually like strategy. It's just a fun romp through the universe. But yeah, it was big enough that it sold fairly well. But the problem being that the team behind it, I think they were under THQ, and then that whole, the company went down until THQ Nordic became a thing. But for, whatever the circumstances, I'm not really 100% sure behind what happened with the studio and everything, but they're coming back with Space Marine 2, which is coming, like I said, probably like about a month from when I'm recording this. So I decided to kind of go back into it and re-experience it just to get a refresher of the characters and all the story and stuff like that, to be ready for the next game, which I'll probably be playing and recording that perhaps. But yeah, just get into it. So let's just start this. We're just gonna be playing on, we'll just play on normal, should be good. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Which is the famous opening words that introduces you to this universe. Here's a planet we're going to be playing on, the planet of Gria. Forge World. A Forge World being a planet that its sole purpose is to build weapons. Some are bigger than others, but every Forge World is important. Like, that's the whole thing about Warhammer's, like, every little thing, not in the minuscule, but in the grand scale is important. So, not, an individual, like people, are not important, but the planet itself will be important. And so, if a population goes below the threshold for, production and stuff like that, that's when it's a problem. So here we have an invasion happening of Gria. And you saw some of the things that popped up. There was, popping up, the responses that they should probably deploy on this planet, and one of them was exterminatus, which just means destroying the whole planet, but they're like, no, you can't do that, this place is absolute. So the only viable option is then to send in Space Marines, which are this universe's super soldiers. Oh, and the fucking soundtrack to this, one of the best soundtracks of all time. So they send in the Ultramarines, which is one of the more populated chapters of the Space Marines, which just means like, a faction of the Space Marines, the chapter, having their own lore and history and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of different chapters. The two main ones that most people know about from outside of Warhammer is the Blood Ravens and the Ultramarines, because they're the two most popular ones and the most populous ones, and they have a lot of Space Marines compared to other ones. There's some that are, you know, fans of the series, what like think are way cooler, like the Grey Wardens or the Space Wolves and stuff like that, but they actually don't have that many people canonically. But they have way cooler lore and backstory and something like that. Like my favorite is definitely the Space Wolves.
Clever of the damned orcs. Keeps us off their backs while they loot the Titan war machine.
Here, introducing your squad,
Report.
including your character, which is the black-haired one whose name is Captain Titus. Yeah, we've been called in to stop the invasion that is happening right now. An invasion made up of orcs. Which, you know, just like in any fantasy setting, is just what you would imagine. Fucking big green dumbasses that just want to kill things. They were literally, in the lore of Warhammer, they were literally designed to kill, and then one day the people who made them died off, and they didn't die off, so they're like, well, nothing left to do but kill. so, you know, they outlived their creators, and now they just do nothing but kill and destroy. And we have Titus just jumping straight out of the Thunderhawk with his jetpack saying, fuck you, I don't follow the rules. Heading straight for the fucking deck of that orc ship to kick some ass. So, this game is also pretty famous for giving you a really, like, basically perfect blend of melee and shooting. Like, it really did the melee slash shooting type of gameplay very well. Like, simplified it where it's like, oh yeah, no, you know, it's not awkward or anything to switch between melee and shooting. It's just like super fluid and really fun. Another fun thing mechanically they added to this game, which was really fun at the time, because it definitely came out around the time where cover shooters were definitely the main thing, you know, Gears of War and stuff like that. So they kind of wanted to stand out, and the way they did that is by the health mechanics in this game. So the health in this game does not regenerate at all. There's no health kits or nothing like that. The only way to regenerate health is to perform execution moves, like I just did there. If you do not do that, you will die. Because you'll slowly like lose more and more health until you just don't have any more. You do have a shield though. That does regenerate. So as long as you have shield, you're good to go. But you definitely want to make sure you get a good amount of health just to make sure when that shield goes down you just don't die instantly. Because some things can, you know, tear your shields in quite a, you know, quickly manner. And it's just fun to perform execution moves. I mean, you're a fucking Space Marine, like, nothing's more fun than picking up somebody and just smashing their shit in. And then here, we're introduced to the War Boss, which is just the biggest and baddest of the orcs, the one who leads the invasions and the different clans and whatnot. Just like any good game, it also just starts you right off into the action, you know, just like, okay, you know. You know, I'm not opposed to a game having a kind of slow start to kind of like introduce you and stuff to the universe, but you know, it has to be done right, which, you know, I can kind of try and go into detail, be like, oh, this is how you do it. This is, at the end of the day, it really just, it's how it feels. Like, certain games just don't do it right, and other games do it right, and you don't really know which one is which until you play it yourself. If you're, you know, playing a game, you're playing a game and you're not invested within, I'd say, about the first, at the most, the first 2 hours, then they didn't do it right. You need to be either invested right off the bat or within the first 2 hours. If not, then, well, hopefully they can go back to the drawing board, but usually they can't. So, you know, sucks to be them, I guess. This game immediately gets you invested. You're like, okay, you're a space marine, you're part of a team, bad monsters attacking the planet, kill everything. And that's really all you need for at least this kind of game, you know, like third-person action shooter. And the story is pretty good in itself too. You know, it really kind of throws a little bit of like curveballs and stuff like that, which if you're a fan of the universe, you can kind of see coming. But if you're just somebody who's just playing it for the first time, you're like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I didn't think this could happen, or that, or, you know, I didn't expect that to happen. And the one thing I'm really excited for in the sequel is, instead of orcs, which is, you know, obviously cool, they're now going with Tyranids, which, you know, they're like your Zergs from StarCraft. Just a massive horde of bugs and monsters that you have to kill. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine. That was basically served as your tutorial.
Captain Titus, come in. Damned orcs shot me off course. I've had no word from Leandros, but I'm picking up Vox chatter from Imperial Guard forces on the ground.
I scarcely thought anyone would be left alive.
And there's your
fighting.
gruff old veteran.
I will meet you there.
Veteran Sergeant Sidonis. There you got a fucking gigantic orbital cannon. It's like a super artillery cannon, I guess. Another thing that this game does really well is just set design and just visual spectacle. Which, if you can't do that in a Warhammer game, you fucked up hard. Because that is one of the main things about Warhammer, is just how amazing and interesting and cool it is. A lot of the Imperial worlds are very just kind of techno-gothic type of thing, mixed with World War I, World War II, military visionary type of stuff, you know. So there you have like an old artillery looking cannon, but then you have all these kind of like gothic statues and stuff like that representing the God Emperor and the Omnissiahs and stuff like that. So they definitely nailed the visual look for this game, which is, you know, one of the more important things of a video game. These little bastards are the Gretchens. The orcs would call them grots. They're basically little what are they called? Little goblins. They build things for the orcs and stuff like that. You usually get very mistreated. Horribly mistreated, as they should, the foul creatures. This is probably where collectible is. But just having these massive fucking space marines are always like one of the cooler things that people really like of Warhammer. Now being to play as them is always fun. I mean, that's the thing. Warhammer Games Workshop really here we get the iconic weapon of the Space Marines, the bolter, which is a big ass fucking rifle, like assault rifle. The 998. This uses 998 rounds. Godwin pattern bolter. Lots of people always complain when the weapons are in games and stuff like that, because they never, to them, they never really seem to fit the descriptions. Like, this seems really cool. You know, big assault rifle. Technically speaking, in the lore, it probably shouldn't be shooting this fast, and also they are micro missiles. So when they hit something, it explodes basically. So you only need like 1 or 2 rounds to really kill anything, you know, that's the size of you. But obviously, you know, gameplay purposes, they need to make like your generic, well, I say generic assault rifle, but it's not really that generic. It's, you know, it's your good standard bolter. And most games are first person, third person set in this universe just follow this simple pattern of it. You know, not really how it's described on the tabletop and stuff like that. Because tabletop kind of makes certain things really fucking overpowered. The bolter should be overpowered, but you know, really in the tabletop, it's all up to the roll of the dice for your accuracy and stuff like that. So that's how it stops from just murdering everything instantly. It's just like, oh, you didn't kill that thing? It's because you didn't hit it with enough bullets, because you missed most of them. Where in this, it's just like, nah, this, you know, Space Marines are extremely accurate. Just that the bolter isn't, like, the most godly weapon in the universe. But as I was saying before, yeah, playing the Space Marines and stuff is great. But Game Workshop really does a good, did a very good, job in making all the factions in the universe pretty cool and unique, in a sense where you're like, oh, this is my favorite, this is why, because I really like this kind of playstyle, or I just like this, you know, idea and stuff like that. Tyranids are cool. My favorite faction are the Necrons, which are like basically cyborgs who have gone and hate all flesh. So they're like, ew, you're made out of flesh? You should die. So yeah, and I just think that's cool because I like, you know, robot cyborg people. I too hate the thought of being a fleshy meatbag.
Are you wounded?
The Codex Astartes warns against using jump packs to leap blindly into enemy fire, and for good reason.
Your days as a novice are behind you. Why do you still interpret the Codex so narrowly?
I look to its rules for guidance.
We all do. But there are also benefits to thinking for yourself. Yes.
Here we got the youngest of the crew, Leandros. You know, fresh new blood into the Astartes, the Space Marines. He's very much that kind of like bright-eyed and doe-eyed novice who's always like, no, we should follow the rules. Like, wait a minute, the rules, this isn't how I was trained. And, you know, everybody around him's like, well, you know, it's good to always remember your training and your basics, but sometimes you gotta think for yourself and adapt to truly become a great soldier.
We make for the defense cannon, Captain?
Sedona's picked up local Imperial Guard communications. They survived under the shadow of that gun. I want to know how. Keep firing! Keep firing!
Whatcha?
Kill everything in that bunker!
So here we're trying to rendezvous with the Imperial Guardsmen, which are, you know, not everybody can be a Space Marine, so you got your actual humans. People really like them just because it's like, you know, trying to, like, normal people trying to come over overwhelming odds. They are, in my opinion, the biggest fucking jobbers. Unless you're specific factions within the guardsmen, like the Cadians and something like that, you're basically a fucking jobber.
Wise guardsmen,
You just die horribly.
you saved yourselves. We thought you did.
We would be, my lord, if not for the lieutenant.
You see here the interaction between normal humans and the Astartes. The Astartes are seen as not necessarily gods. Well, some people may even consider them gods, but they're definitely seen as almost like angels, which is
We need updated intel.
definitely the imagery that the Imperium has made for themselves, and even that the Emperor himself, when he was around, kind
The bunker is beyond that.
of painted of them. So the thing with Space Marines is every chapter
Remarkable.
can trace them. Almost every chapter can trace
Fight on.
their origins to a Primarch. And a Primarch is a direct descendant, a direct clone / son of the Emperor himself. The Emperor being this super powerful, godlike figure that's just, you know, the one that all of humanity worships as the God Emperor. And so the Primarchs were a step under him, you know, his clones of him / sons of him, and every Primarch then went on to create
I'm in position
a
at a broken
chapter of the
monument near
Space
guard line.
Marines, which derive all their abilities and strength from those Primarchs' genetic seed, like their genetic coding. And so, basically, every Space Marine kind of takes a little bit of of the Primarch juice, basically, and makes themselves into this superhuman. Becoming a Space Marine is so not rare, but difficult enough that
Sergeant,
they actually have what is known as a gene seed inside of them. That if they were to fall in battle, they can actually be cloned again if they're recovered.
Orcs for you.
But every time a Space Marine dies, is a pretty big hit
Got that
to the
gun
chapter.
well defended, no mistake. But typical orc behavior would be to
Because
dismantle or
not too
destroy
many
the
people
gun.
survive
certainly not use it to keep our forces at bay.
the whole process of becoming a Space Marine.
Strategy behind it. Their leader is no fool.
So they're basically like your Spartans, at least the Spartan 2s from Halo, where it's like a lot of them died from the process of becoming it. So when one actually became a Spartan, it was a big deal, and if one were to die, it was like, oh man, that's a hard hit right there. Here we get another iconic weapon of the Space Marines, the chain sword. In specific, the Mark 11, I believe, the Mark 11 Hell's Teeth chainsword. So, basically, this thing is just like its name implies, is literally just a sword that is also a chainsaw. So you hear like, it's a pretty badass weapon. I'm pretty sure, I'm convinced that this is where the idea of the Lancer came from Gears of War. Just big fuck you chainsaw thing that slices through things. Wow. Yeah, another good thing that this game does is does give you a good variety of weapons and a good variety of gadgets and stuff that can kind of like change your playstyle and how you do things, and fits a lot of people's different kind of like idea of a Space Marine and their playstyle. This game is great. I will admit that I feel like they probably just didn't have the time and or budget to really fit everything they wanted into it. So there's definitely like a lot of things that you feel like they could have added, whether it be quality of life or even just gameplay wise. But for what it was and what it is, it's like fantastic, and it's definitely a whole lot of fun. Like nowadays you can get the get the game very cheaply. You know, it's over 10 years old, so.
Target that squig!
The next game, Space Marines 2, definitely seems like they are going all out. You know, really still knowing exactly what they were missing in the first game and iterating on it and evolving it into what they really wanted to, like adding definitely all the different types of things that you probably wanted in this game. Those are little squigoth, I believe they're called. Little pig monster things that, as you can see, the orcs usually attach explosives to and just send them in to explode. Those are baby ones, though. Little baby squigoth. Ammo, grenades. Pew, 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 pew. As you can see, they're using the famous orc tactic of keep sending people until hopefully the enemy loses. And if the enemy does not lose, then it's because you didn't send in enough people. Got the yellow guys over there with guns, known as looter boys.
Dropship incoming!
Now you can get the bigger guys here, the knobs as they're known as. These are your heavy units, heavy melee units specifically. As you can see, they are extremely violent. Definitely takes a lot more shots to take these guys down, so when you see one, you definitely want to try and focus them down because they will just keep charging at you and wreck your shit.
Where is your commander, guardsman?
Inside, but the door is sealed.
I believe they will let us through. Imperial Guard, we are Ultramarines. Open this door.
Space Marines.
Yes, look at me. I am
Word from the second recce.
quite holy.
Skins are headed here from the south.
Standard salute.
Gretchen instead of knife.
Yes.
Throats and nuts.
Reinforce their position, hold the line, and stay alive.
Aye, Lieutenant.
Here we meet the beautiful lieutenant.
Thank the Emperor. Second Lieutenant Mira, 203rd Cadian Regiment.
Captain Titus of the Ultramarines.
You are in command.
I'm all that's left, my lord. Unless my commanders rise from the grave. So far, they seem content to stay put.
Lieutenant, the scouts have returned to forward base.
How many?
2.
So yeah, these are Cadians, which are definitely
That damn gun.
I would say the
We don't
cooler
have the numbers to make an assault. And as you might have seen, it's shooting
guardsmen
down all
in
our
this
support
in the Warhammer universes in terms of faction and lore.
Leave the gun to us.
They're famous
Come
for
with me then.
when
I should warn
the
you,
planet was
Lords.
around the planet of
We've got a
Cadia.
slight
They
war
were
coming
definitely
down
like
here.
the most well trained guardsmen, and Cadia fell. So now to be a Cadian is quite rare, but they're like legendary soldiers.
Adeptus Astartes, Access authorized.
Here we get a purity seal, which unlocks the Fury. Use T to enter Fury mode or had your green health. So yes, this is also another way to kind of regain health, but it's like an ultimate.
What do you know of the Titans
Your
on
health
this planet?
continuously regenerates, and your melee strength is like increased, so you go around killing.
We need
But you
to
gotta be
reach
careful
that
because if you run out
Your
and you're in a
fastest
bad
route is
spot,
across
you can
the
get
rail
yourself
bridge behind
wrecked.
the gun complex. It leads directly to the western gates of the Manufactorum.